Hey, welcome back. You're just in time for the Turbo Game of the Week. This week we're going to take a look at Battle Royale for the Turbografx 16. Came out in the US by Incredible Technologies. You know, the makers of TV Sports Football and a few other good games. Let's give this one a shot. Battle Royale is an interesting game. It seemed like Incredible Technologies was really going for a type of game that just utilized the 5-player capabilities of the Turbografx. As far as I know, it was the first video game console, especially of the 16-bit generation, going forward, that was the first to allow for 5 players at the same time. And it seemed that it's possible that the gameplay mechanics and the game control and the moves in general may have been slightly overlooked because they perhaps rushed a few things. But I can't say the game is perfect by any means, but I also can't say it's horrible. It has some very good qualities that make it a very fun party game. I mean, at the very least, you can definitely go in with 5 people. You know, if you have 4 friends over and you want to have a good time, play Battle Royale because everyone will be just as confused as everyone else. The punching and kicking, landing punches and landing kicks is difficult. Hitting any kind of moves other than just brawl and melee strikes is difficult as well. It's not awful, but it also is very flawed in some ways. There's a lot of gameplay mechanics that make the game very difficult to play. I know that in general when I'm playing, I try to stay out of the way, especially if there's multiple people in the ring at once. If they're all up against you, one tactic that I like to do is try to stay towards the ropes with your back to the ropes so that way nobody can get behind you. That was a tactic that I had to do against multiple people at the same time, because once you get surrounded, it's really difficult to get out of there. They can just beat the living crap out of you, pick you up, and toss you up before you know it. There's really no countering of any moves of any kind, but it can be difficult and it's frustrating. But once you get past like the learning curve on what moves to do and how to play through the game, you'll notice that it's a little, it benefits you slightly to be kind of cheap, do cheap moves that'll knock a guy down and throw him out as soon as possible. I do think the music in the game is actually really well done. I like the chiptunes in this game a lot. I actually enjoy the graphics and all the characters, Spitfire Spike and the Samoan character and the Enforcer. I actually like all of the wrestling characters. I think there's some real fun, like 80s and early 90s style cheesiness to the characters that are really awesome, and that's something you don't see in a lot of wrestling games, especially ones where it's all generic characters. Or not generic characters, but all made-up characters and not actual official professional wrestling characters from back in the 80s, like the NWA or the AWA. So it's really cool to see them make up some characters that are pretty original and pretty hilarious, actually. This game also, you gotta remember, this came out in 1990 or 1991. 1990, yeah, it did come out in 1990. So Battle Royale came out in 1990, and you got to think of the types of wrestling games that were out at that time that it really had to compare with. There were some games on the NES that were out. There was also pro wrestling on the Master System. And I won't say that Battle Royale is better than any of those games, because like pro wrestling, which then would wind up becoming Fire Pro Wrestling on the PC Engine, and then it would move on to the Saturn, and there from there on to the Dreamcast and the PlayStation systems. But those games are far more advanced and far more technical, and much better wrestling games in general. If you're a PC Engine gamer and you're looking for a professional wrestling game, I definitely advise you to seek out Fire Pro Wrestling 3 and Google some some moves list, and go through and play that, because it's actually a really great game. Fire Pro Wrestling's a much better wrestling game for sure. But this one, it allows for a lot of multiplayer aspects, and there's different gameplay elements to when you're playing with friends and versus playing against computers. So it's not awful.
The control on this game is abysmal.
But in general speaking, when you're looking at other wrestling games that came out around this time, in the late 80s and then of course 1990, it isn't bad. It stacks up pretty well against those, pretty favorably, really. I remember having like WrestleMania on the NES, and that game was so difficult to play. You had all the really big characters like Hulk Hogan and Honky Tonk Man and Andre, but the game was relatively unplayable. It was so difficult to make any kind of moves or make any sense of how the game was to be played. The Battle Royale game itself only offers one type of match, and that's a pretty big disappointment in some ways. I know my favorite element of pro wrestling when I was a kid was the Battle Royals or the Royal Rumble features. Having as many people in the ring as possible, and then everyone's trying to toss each other over. But to not even have the options available to be able to make just a regular wrestling match where just pinfalls or submissions count was kind of lazy on Incredible Technology's part. They really should have done that where you can at least have more than just the Battle Royal aspect of it. Even the one-on-one matches, yeah, you guessed it, they're actual Battle Royals. You have to throw your opponent over the top. There's no real referees either. I do think that the soundtrack in the game is actually pretty awesome. Every wrestler, when they win a match, has their own type of graphic and their own music. They have also managers that seem to have their own personalities, and they manage the different wrestlers. In the melee room, where all the managers are running towards the wrestlers, trying to pick who they're going to be the manager of. It's a pretty awesome scene, and that is really great. I also really like the sound effects. There's a lot of speech in this game, just from the wrestlers themselves, when they say things, when they're yelling or they're screaming, or when they get thrown over the top rope. It's pretty hilarious. There's a lot of speech, and there's a lot of taunting sounds in this game, which is really cool. And also there's a crowd noise. There's a lot of cheering and crowd noise that's pretty awesome. For a earlier Turbografx game, to hear those kind of sound effects in the game, I was really impressed with, and it's really neat. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, so hey, we played some Battle Royale for the Turbografx on our first ever Turbo game of the week. It's Battle Royale. So please, if you've got the game, pop it in, play it. Probably, assuming if you've had it and you've had it for a while, you probably haven't played it in a long time. So go ahead and just pop it in, relive some of those fantastic Battle Royale memories, or else relive some of those frustrating moments where you're like, wow, I don't know why I pulled this out. But I did, and well, I'm going to put it away for a while now. But it's really fun. Turbo Game of the Week is just something that we're doing on the PC Engine FX forums, and I'm just kind of documenting that with this video and uploading it here for everybody else to see how poor I am at the game in general. But just doing the video, recording the Game of the Week is something that I wanted to do, to try to stick with it, to do playing one Turbo game a week, because it's healthy. Turn your Turbo on once a week. Play a game, even if it's something that you don't necessarily think that's all that great, or if it's something that's maybe you're not in the middle of, maybe you're in the middle of a different game and you're really trying to get through it, and it's like, what, I want to play something different. Just pop it in and play it for a little bit, just to waste some time, or just because you haven't played in a long time. But this week's game of the week was Battle Royale. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you next week with next week's Turbo Game of the Week.